Welcome to Season 9, Episode 32 of the Ubuntu Podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk to Ryan Sipes from System76. We'll also have some command line love and go over your feedback. I'm Alan, and joining me this week is Martin.
Hello.
Hello. And Mark.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm not bad at all, thank you.
Good. Super. So, Mark, what have you been up to?
I have been trying to build an Ubuntu app.
Oh dear, that doesn't sound good.
No, well...
Sounds a bit like when you were trying to flash Ubuntu on your Nexus 7.
So I eventually got Ubuntu on my Nexus 7. I then discovered that there was no Pass app, which is the password manager I used. So I thought, no problem, I'll build one. Problem. So it turns out, well... I knew already Pass is basically a bash script which calls Git and GPG and a few other things to basically create a managed folder of encrypted password files.
Right.
Which is fine because you can, in click packages, which the Ubuntu phone uses, you can package binaries and then call them from your app. The trouble is that what you don't really want to do is package bash so that you can call a bash script. So, I'm currently having to have a bit of a rethink about how I can re-implement the logic of the bash script in...
But bash is shipped on the phone, so you shouldn't need to.
No, because the app is constrained in the container.
Confined
in the container, the app can't call bash.
Oh.
Yes.
But you could put bash in there.
I could put all of bash and all of git and all of GPG and all of a few other things in there just so that I can make the shell script run.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you see.
Or you could port it to some other platform and use libgit and libgpt.
Well, this is the other thing. I could use the libraries and then rewrite it all in C++. Or
that sounds better.
Or I could just re-implement the logic in C++ and call the binaries as well.
It's an interesting challenge.
It is an interesting challenge.
Others might want to get involved in something like that. It sounds like if you put a framework up on GitHub, I'm sure other people might want to get involved because that sounds like a useful tool.
Yes. One thing I have considered is making an unconfined app which just calls to bash on the phone and then writing a load of unit tests that make sure it works and then using that as a basis to port it to something which can run confined.
Yeah, you could do that, and you could publish that in the open store as a temporary thing because they allow unconfined apps there.
So I might try that as a first step because then I've actually got something.
I'd do that, yeah.
Okay.
Simplest thing possible, Mark.
Well, let's see how that goes. More on that in future episodes. Alan, what have you been doing?
I uploaded my first snap to the Snappy store. And it's a Node application, and it's a Node command line application called Emoji. So it's the word emoji, but without the I on the end, Emoji. And you just type emoji when you're looking for emoji that could embellish your textual conversation. So you type emoji space cat and it will offer you a selection of cat emoji.
Is this why you've now got cats and logos on at the end of your name on Launchpad?
That's partly why. Yeah, I like emoji, all right?
This is like you do with GIFs on Telegram, right?
Yes.
Where half of the conversation with you is just weird GIFs of things instead of you saying things.
So I created a snap of this upstream project called Emoji, and I submitted a pull request on GitHub to submit the Snapcraft YAML to the upstream project so they could upload it to the store. And the response I got was, I'm not really interested in packaging software, but feel free to do it yourself if you want to. So I thought, okay, I will. Mm-hmm. So I made the snap and I uploaded it to the store after doing extensive quality assurance testing. I uploaded basically typing emoji cat, emoji house, emoji horse, and getting loads of emoji on my command line. Pushed it into the store, and then I made a little silly video using simple screen recorder to record a terminal just to show it off. And I used some free music from Kevin MacLeod in Compotech, which is brilliant if you need music for a YouTube video that is not going to get you taken down or your channel deleted.
Well, you'd hope not, but
I hope not. Yeah, it's all Creative Commons and stuff. But yeah, it was quite an interesting challenge to snap someone else's software and put it in the store.
So two quick observations. That does sound extremely useful, and after we've recorded this, I'll be snap installing that. The second is I remember vividly you telling me how you were never going to try and package another Node application ever again. So
right, and I wouldn't if it weren't for the fact this is a command line app, and they are like a bazillion times easier than anything that uses Grunt and all these other weird, interesting, like tennis game noise sound effect named build tools. So yeah, I was quite pleased that this is a super simple YAML file. It's like, it's the most basic. Go and get the upstream and build it with the Node plugin. Job done. Perfect. And there's a few, and I've built another one which I'm going to put up maybe tomorrow.
Right.
I think that's everything, isn't it?
Yeah. And now on the show, we are joined by Ryan Sipes from System76. Hi, Ryan.
Oh, hello. I was just making sure all my audio settings were still good.
You're coming through loud and clear.
We can hear you.
Thank you.
Right. So to kick us off, just tell us a bit about who System76 are and what they do.
So System76 is a computer manufacturer based out of Denver, and we make computers born to run Linux, specifically Ubuntu Linux.
Excellent. Okay. So how did you come to have your new role there?
Well, last year I went to the Superfan event that they put on, and I was selected to be one of the people that they flew out there and hung around for a couple days. And while I was there, I made friends with many of the people who work there. And so when I left my other role here recently, I had a conversation with Carl, the CEO, and we shared our plans for the future of open source hardware and where we thought, the Linux desktop could do better. And by the end of the conversation, I had agreed to a role as community manager.
Excellent. So you alluded to your previous role there. So just for information for people who don't know, your previous role, you used to work for Mycroft, is that right?
Yeah, I was CTO over at Mycroft. And
right, cool.
The folks making essentially the open source alternative to like the Amazon Echo.
Yeah, cool.
So one of the things that, whenever people talk about, buying Linux laptops or buying laptops and running Linux on them, you've got the people who say just go and buy whatever laptop and wipe the Windows machine and, put Linux on it. Whereas if I buy something from System76, it's, Linux is baked in at the factory. I'm going to get, and I know everything's going to work, right?
Correct. And this is something that I've been fighting for a while now online, specifically Reddit, is, there are a lot of people who don't seem to recognize the value in that, but then almost immediately after we discuss, why it's important to buy something that has all of the stuff, all the hardware tested, and in some cases, our engineers end up writing entire drivers to support certain hardware and sending them upstream. And then after I get done talking about this with somebody, they're like, well, I never had that problem. But then they're like, oh, except for that last laptop I bought where it had a graphics card, or not a graphics card, a wireless card that didn't work right. And so I had to do this, that, and the other. And I think that besides the fact of just having everything work, supporting a company that actually works to make sure that all of the hardware is supported and then participates with the community in order to make sure that all of that work is then sent upstream and provided to everyone who's running laptops with similar hardware, like that's really gives me a lot of pride, because we're not just making our own machines work right, but we're helping out others who are buying those machines off the shelf and that have those same or similar parts.
And that sort of dichotomy that you touch on there, where people will buy the brand of computer, whatever they want, usually governed by price, and then complain when Ubuntu or another Linux distribution doesn't work correctly on it, but they have bought a device that was designed to run Windows, whereas when they're buying a computer from System76, they are buying a device which was designed to run Linux. And you've got a rather timely example to point to, because just last week we talked about the the Lenovo story, where their originally claims that their devices had been gimped by Microsoft and Lenovo to not allow Linux to be installed, which didn't turn out to be the case. But that's a good example of, if you just buy a device that's designed to run Windows, it will run Windows very well. Yeah. But if you want to run Linux, you should probably buy a computer that's designed to run Ubuntu or Linux.
Yeah, the thing that frustrated me about this story is that everyone seemed to be okay once it came out that they didn't allegedly purposely gimp these machines. But that, to me, is even worse. That means that no one along the line took the time to say, like, well, I wonder if this will run another operating system. I wonder, Linux was not even introduced in the thought process or any other operating system. And that shows how much they care about their Linux users who are buying these machines. Like, not at all. And so and
we do see that with other manufacturers. When I spoke to Barton George about the Dell Sputnik project and the fights that he had to have internally in order to, get Linux installed on these Dell machines. It's Linux is the second-class citizen in those environments. Much as we welcome these companies making Linux laptops, they're a second-class citizen, and that's very different from the way System76 does it, right?
Yeah, and I think that. Everyone there is a Linux fanatic. Everyone at System76 eats, breathes, and drinks Linux, and they wake up and they go to sleep talking about open source software. That's what inspired me to join the team. Is I went out there and it was infectious. Like, all the conversations that I was having with my Linux user group, I would have the opportunity to have these conversations every day at my workplace, because these people are really passionate about making fantastic products that feature Linux front and center. And it's just amazing the passion that goes into that. And these people really care. And that's why, it is frustrating when somebody who says that they are a big supporter of open source software and Linux buys a machine from one of these Windows companies, when you're voting with your wallet for better Windows computers, for computers with better Windows support. And
you're not representing a demand for Linux or Ubuntu by doing that.
Correct. And when you buy from System76, you are voting with your wallet. You're saying, I want machines, better machines that run Linux. And we take that money and we pour it into R&D and more people to work on drivers and patches and, contributing upstream. And I think that that's really important. And already, we're doing very well. The company has grown over the last couple of years quite a lot, and our business has grown too. And I'm just excited to have this opportunity to, come on shows like this and
cool.
and promote this awesome company that's working to make the best Ubuntu machines on the planet.
So you described your role as community manager. So as someone at a hardware company, what does a community manager actually do?
That's a good question, and it's a question that I'm still asking myself. A lot of what I'm doing right now, we sat down and we identified some things that we thought would be helpful to not just our customers, but to the open source community as a whole. Mm-hmm. And some of those are around documentation. So we've started at support.system76.com, we've started a project to just make as much documentation as possible. And they read tutorials or articles. Some examples are how to install Steam, how to change your desktop environment, things like that. And that's one area that I'm focusing on, because it'll be fantastic for our customers to say, like, yeah, we can help you, but if you have any other questions, check out these docs. They're really great. They can walk you through just about anything you'd want to do. And those are all hosted on GitHub, so anybody can contribute new docs or help us, if they notice a error with those docs.
Oh, really? So you could build a community around writing documentation for other
correct,
customers,
and not just for
right?
customers, but for anybody running Ubuntu. And the great thing about that is there is a business savviness to that too, because if someone comes to our site for support documentation and happens to see our machines and like them, then it's a win for everybody. And so what's been one of my focuses is trying to get a ton of people involved in that. And so far, it just started a couple weeks ago that we really started promoting it. So we've got a few flyby contributions, but we're looking to grow that. And Cassidy, who you may know from the Elementary OS project, has been, he and Ben, who work at System76, have been looking to upgrade that site to make it more searchable, more community-oriented, so people can comment on the articles and everything. And so you'll see that site grow. And we're hoping that it's helpful to our customers, but also to any Linux user, hopefully mostly newer Linux users, but I'm hoping that there's something there for everybody to find value in.
So you mentioned Cassidy there has been working on that site, and he's obviously heavily involved with the Elementary project. That leads on to the question if System76 are considering to ship any other Linux distros or Ubuntu flavors on their computers.
We get that question very often, and I don't know if you guys have ever spoken to Carl, but Carl's the CEO of System76, and he's very, very product oriented. He likes polish, and he likes the whole experience to be one consistent experience. And that is very important. And you can see it when you start up the machine, that the whole thing is designed around this is the experience, and we want it to be consistent, and we want it to feel good and not just be another machine that has Linux on it. We consider ourselves a pretty loyal partner to Ubuntu and the Ubuntu community. And right now, there aren't any plans to ship another distribution on our machines. We've been very happy with Ubuntu for a while now.
Are you politely telling me that Ubuntu Mate won't be featuring in any upgrade?
Oh, we had to get the mention in.
The fortunate thing is, if somebody wants to use an Ubuntu flavor, we produce a PPA that has all of our drivers in it, and you just add that PPA after you've reinstalled your distribution and run the apt install System76 driver, and there you go. All your hardware should be supported. You should be off to the races if it's not already upstream. And so we don't tell anyone don't use another distribution. It's just much easier for us to focus on, when we go through our testing, to focus on stock Ubuntu. And I know that makes some people upset, but we are doing well, but we're still at a size where every man hour counts, and so we like to focus on doing one thing really, really right.
We're fortunate that in the Linux community we're tech savvy, and therefore people can buy their Ubuntu laptop and install a distribution of their own choice on it if they should want to. Now, I've heard you talk on another podcast about System76's, in air quotes, secret lab. So is there anything you can tell us about what goes on in that secret lab and what might be emerging from it soon?
I'm going to loop back to that in just a second, because there is something I almost left out.
Oh.
As part of that documentation project, though, we are looking to create an area for people who work on other distributions to engage in making sure that our machines properly support their distributions. So we're going to be sharing anything that we come across during our testing process, and share that with developers of other distributions to ensure that they can help us make it work properly on their distribution. Coming back to the secret lab,
that's cool.
This is one of my favorite things to talk about. When I actually was talking to Carl about joining the team, he showed me the secret lab and the projects that he's got going on in there. And I got to say, that's one of the things that really pushed me over the edge and made me think, wow, this company's got a vision moving forward for what they see Linux users wanting. You'll see some really interesting new devices coming from us that I think will make Linux users very, very excited.
So how many models of watch, phone, tablet, and VR headset will there be in that secret lab?
I can't talk about that. I'm not going to talk about those things specifically, but what I will say is that we have a couple of products that we're going to push out the door first that are us testing, our ability to completely design and develop this stuff from the ground up. So how the process will go is we'll finish designing it in our secret lab and at our offices, and then from there it'll go to the manufacturing facility to run a few test runs, and then finally hopefully mass production.
Okay, here's a question then. Is this a departure from the typical devices that System76 have worked on in the past?
Yes and no. That's as good as I can get. There will be. I can say that you will see things that we've done before, and you will see things that we haven't done. But but a lot of that rides on what the demand looks like to just bring it to a practical level, because I want to make sure that people understand that if you like what the company's doing, and we roll out these products and nobody buys them, well, that's that's a pretty good sign that that's not what folks want to us, And so I would encourage people that as we roll out some of the details around these new products, if you find them interesting and you find them engaging and you want to see more, that you at least consider them or recommend them to your friends so that we can continue, really pushing that R&D department to create new and interesting things. And I think that's important. One thing that, I've tried multiple times is Ubuntu Touch. I would love to see, more device makers, including System76, push out products that feature that. And, Ubuntu Personal, whatever, the whole convergent desktop. But a lot of that's going to come down to whether or not people are excited about that product and interested in buying those products. And it's no secret. And this is where, I'll talk about my desires for a device. I would really like a convertible laptop, something that's in tablet mode. So, Unity 8 tablet mode. And then whenever I'm ready to use my mouse and keyboard, I just flip it over and back up. And then I have, the desktop. And that's really exciting to me. And so I guess it will depend on whether we do stuff like that or not on people's interest around products like that.
Cool. Right. I'm afraid that we're running out of time, so I think we're going to have to leave it there. But if people want to find out more about System76 and your work there, where can they go to find out?
Well, they can follow us on Twitter at System76, the same on Facebook, System76 is the page, and on Google+. We have, if you go to the website, I'm going to be posting more stuff in the blog, and so you can check that out and see what we're, all the different ideas we're having and things that we're working on. And then finally, if you're interested in contributing to those docs that we're making, that's support.system76.com, and it says edit on GitHub when you're looking at the docs, and so you can click that little button and then you'll be taken straight to the repo, and we'd love people to contribute there.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us, and I look forward to seeing the things that come out of the secret lab.
Thank you.
And now it's time for some command line love. And this week, the command line love is called Yadim, which stands for Yet Another .files Manager.
Hang on, that implies that there are lots of other .files.
There are.
Is this a thing?
Yeah, it is. So I've been using a .file manager for several years now, the same one. And I wanted to make a change because it uses a number of different tools, and It's a bit of a faff when I want to replicate my dot files on servers and workstations, and I want to be selective in how I do it. It's sort of an all or nothing affair. So I went shopping for another dot file manager, and I've settled on this one because it's brilliant. So it uses a single...
What does it do?
So what you can do is it uses a single Git repository for storing all of your dot files in your home directory. That's basically what it does. And you can either use it to simply keep them backed up, or in my case, I'm using it to keep them in sync between multiple computers. Its dependencies are basically bash and git. And it has...
So Mark can make an app out of it.
Yeah, you can make an app from that, Mark. But it's got two important features. One is the ability to use alternate files based on the OS or host name. So this is important if you're on like a Debian box or an Ubuntu box. You can have different versions of your bash RC deposited into your home directory based on what OS you're running or the host name, things like that. And the real killer feature is it has the ability to encrypt and track confidential files. So things like your SSH configuration, you can actually have those encrypted as part of the process. And it's a very Git-like workflow. So if you know Git, it's super simple to use.
Cool.
And so you would install this on every machine. Is there much in the way of setup that you have to do before it's, solid, or is it just install it and you're done?
You install it, so it's in the Xenial and Yakety archives. You can just apt install it. It's a little bit of an old version, so I've made a PPA for it. We'll have a link to that. And that includes a trusty version and a Xenial version and a Yakety version. But you just apt install Yadim. And then the first time you use it in your home directory, you just type Yadim in it, and that puts all the necessary Git scaffolding up in place. And then it's a bit like using Git. You say Yadim add, and then path to bash rc, yadim commit, I've added my bash rc, yadim push, and if you're on another machine, you can just do yadim clone URL to your Git repository, and it pulls it all down. So I've found dot file managers are a really good way to... It means that if I want to blow away a laptop or a machine and start again, I can do that. And I know the overhead of recreating my system is very, very low because I've got all my files backed up and synced. I've got all of my dot configuration. I can install a blank machine, restore the dot files, restore my data, and I'm up and running within moments.
Sweet.
This is a great tool for doing that.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
We love getting your feedback, so please send it to us. Even the pointlessly mean stuff makes us laugh. If it's short, tweet us on @Ubuntu Podcast. If it's less short, but please no essays, email us on show@ubuntupodcast.org. If you'd like to discuss some of the things we talk about with other listeners, post on our Shiny News subreddit at reddit.com/r/Ubuntu Podcast. Or you can just leave a comment on the relevant show notes on our website, ubuntupodcast.org.
And now it's time for all that feedback. And as usual, we don't have time to read it all out, but we do read it all, so please keep sending it in. First up, David King posted on our website.
Good luck using Ubuntu phone. Unfortunately, I can no longer use mine. All was going well until recently the web browser stopped working. Then, a few days later, no more text messaging. Then the internet was no longer accessible. No Wi-Fi icon, no phone or data icon, no way to connect to the internet anymore. So now my Ubuntu phone is pretty much useless. The OS still has a long way to go to become a decent phone OS that anyone can use.
Oh dear.
I look at my phone nervously, and then I'm reassured by the fact that all of those icons appear to be in the right places. So,
And next up, Bob Dixon emailed us at show@ubuntupodcast.org.
In a recent podcast, Laura said she wanted to have her superglue last longer and had been advised to keep it from the air. It's hard to imagine air infiltrating into a closed tube of superglue. I'm pretty sure that the glue would be leaking if this was occurring. However, I just recently disposed of a tube after using the last drop. I opened this tube 2 years ago. After each use, it was stored in the refrigerator. I read this somewhere several years back, and it's worked well.
Well, there you go. Keep it next to your Sugru.
I don't know if Laura still listens. Perhaps she does. If she doesn't, we'll pass those wise words along.
Excellent. And oh dear, apologies in advance for butchering your name.
I thought you were looking at his name going, oh, God, not here again. Oh, God.
Krzysztof Kuska emailed us at show@ubuntupodcast.org.
To keep the story short, is privacy on Ubuntu phones still a problem? It was earlier. And then he provides a link to a LinkedIn page written by Alexander Hanf.
Yeah, so this was written in March about there not being like lots of things being sort of privacy leaky, like things like online search being on by default. So I guess so, unless you turn everything off.
Yeah. If you use it the way out of the box, then yeah, you can go online and use it. And it will send data to various places that you send your data to. I'm not sure I fully believe all of the detail in this article, despite it coming from someone who works in the privacy world.
Fair enough.
I'll leave it at that.
Daniel left a comment on our website.
I don't get the running gag reference to the distribution that shall not be named. Don't laugh. I'm trying to keep a straight face. Can someone fill me in, please?
No.
Laura did reply on the website. Go and read what she said there.
Yes, that's a much better explanation than we could do here.
Yeah.
Stephen Buchanan.
Do you want to read out what Laura said? Because that might be useful for other people who haven't seen that.
So Laura explained I'm not barred from saying Ubuntu Mate because I do often. It's just some teasing that happens, and probably because I over-promoted Ubuntu Mate early on, and it just became a running joke within the team.
A running joke that we find a lot funnier than anyone else does, apparently. Oh well. And Stephen Buchanan emailed us.
I'm a newbie to Linux and I love Ubuntu because the only reason I know Linux is because of Ubuntu. I really love Unity and it's beautiful. I'm listening from the beginning of the podcast because I discovered it recently and also sharing with my friends as well.
Gold star.
Please don't start your friends on episode 1 of season 1.
Questions to Martin. What does your background image in Twitter mean?
I looked at your Twitter page to see this.
Yeah.
And I have the same question.
Okay, just look at the picture very closely and ask yourself what you're looking at. Yeah.
Are you going to leave it there? Okay.
Yeah, I am going to leave it there. For those of you who are wondering what the heck we're talking about.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah, there we go. So for those of you wondering, at @m_Wimpress, go and have a look at the picture. And if you work out, tweet me and said, I got it or something.
I don't get it.
I've explained it to you in the past.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll tell you later.
To Alan, I want to see your face. You resemble Mr. Darcy in the film Pride and Prejudice.
Is that Colin Firth?
Yes. And actually, I'll have you know, my mother-in-law actually said, when I first started going out with Claire, she said I did look like Mr. Darcy. So Claire does call me Mr. Darcy.
Did she have a beer goggles on when she said that, Alan?
Yeah, she was very far away. To Mark, what inspired you to have such long hairs?
Long hairs. That's just the length they get to.
Oh, okay. That's what happens if you just don't touch them. Yeah,
basically, I don't like getting my hair cut.
Okay. And we're still on Stephen Buchanan's mail, by the way, for those keeping up at the back. He's given us a YouTube channel. He says, check out the videos, especially related to race and culture.
Yes, so I watched a few of these videos, and they're by a very angry man called Paul Joseph Watson, and I just wanted to say that if anything that I have ever done or said on the show might imply that I agree in any way with this guy's attitude, that's just not the case.
Okay. And finally, Stephen says, Laura really has the loveliest voice, and her request that appears in the end made me write this mail.
Right, we're definitely keeping that in. Thomas Meshos emailed us.
Someday we will be tired of news stories that don't do any fact-checking, but apparently today is not that day. Regarding the story, you can now download a single ISO image with all the Ubuntu 16.04.1 LTS flavours. It's worth mentioning the ISO does not actually contain all the flavours. While the ISO does contain most flavours, it is missing 3, Ubuntu Chillin, Ubuntu Studio and Mythbuntu. While these aren't glaring omissions, they are, in fact, official flavours. Full disclosure, I'm the Mythbuntu developer.
So, yes, that was our bad for reporting a story from Softpedia, I think.
Yeah, we don't tend to download every single ISO that claim they have a release and then examine it to see if it really does have the version of Firefox that they say they have. But
if we'd read what it said on the actual website rather than what it said on the news site, we would have maybe thought about, that's not got those yet.
Oh, okay.
So,
my bad.
Yes, but I mean, it was from what we've experienced in the past is not a terribly reliable news source. So, fair point.
Okay.
Edward Crosby left a comment on our website about his Pi projects.
He says, I have a Raspberry Pi 3 running Ubuntu something 1604. It's currently set up to do the following. 1. With an IP security cam, I currently have the Pi 3 running an FTP server to capture those images. Then on a daily basis, the images are backed up via rsync to my NAS. That sounds brilliant. Because my home router is horrible as a DNS server, I have my Raspberry Pi running DNS mask for my LAN hostname resolution. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's an excellent idea. We did for reference. We did ask a couple of episodes ago. What do you use a Raspberry Pi for? So that's why Edward sent us that mail.
And John also emailed about his Raspberry Pi projects.
In episode 30, Alan asked what we use in the listening audience and have found uses for the Raspberry Pi. You did just say that. You said it in episode 30 as well, apparently. I currently have 2 in full-time use. A Pi 2B, which is the router for my home network, and a 2B Plus, which sports a Pimoroni Fat DAC and functions as a media server in my living room. To be fair, I also have 4 Pi 2s in a bag under my desk. Yeah, I think that's fair. Part of course. They now form a testing network I use to play with the configuration questions without disrupting the others that are in use around my house. Yeah, brilliant.
Cool. And
he also says...
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes. He does also say... Go on, you do that.
As for the question about educational uses, I've never seen one in use that way and seriously doubt whether any school in my area has the faintest idea they even exist.
Oh, well. Okay. Will left a comment on our website.
I have one Pi with a temperature sensor attached to the GPIO pins. I use it to log the temperature in my house.
Interesting. And even Rasmussen emailed the show.
The most comfortable mouse I've ever used for right hands is a Myonex Naos, which only has the traditional buttons plus a small back and forward button and 2 hard to hit buttons between the left and right click. So it has 5 buttons by the sounds of it. This downside is all of these customizations, including lighting, require Windows to set up. The upside is that everything is stored in memory on the mouse and independent of the OS.
Cool.
Storm77 emailed the show.
Loving the Meizu Pro, I came to the conclusion that Ubuntu Touch isn't ready for me yet. Still waiting for someone to port the Onion router and a good podcast app. I needed a way to follow the progress, so I patched the TWRP 3.0 kernel to include important partitions that make switching between different versions of Android and Ubuntu very simple. Cool.
That is cool. I could have done with that a few weeks ago. That would have saved a whole lot of time. Yeah.
And finally, Aaron Christensen emailed the show with several command line love suggestions that we've added to our growing library. And Excellent. That's all of your feedback.
Wow.
That's all for Bumper Fun-Packed episode 32. We'll be back next week when we'll have more news, comment, discussion, and possibly a new guest presenter.
Maybe.
Ooh, exciting.
See you next time. Don't forget to send us all your lovely feedback and what you do with your Pi and command line loves and everything. We love reading it, and we love filing it at the last minute in our show notes.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Pi.